Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R has all kinds of characters. Big grapplers, patient zoners, rapid fire rushdown characters, and a British guy throwing scythes. Axl is tricky because he isn't exactly what you'd think he is. While many consider him a strong zoner, Top Player Digital Watches, and Axl Master if ever there was one, looks at him as more complex than that. Between his esoteric toolkit and unique approach to space, there is a lot of depth to Axl Low, and today, Digital Watches shares the secret sauce. What's up, y'all? KRCPinto here. Today, I've got with me the premier Axl Low main of Guilty Gear Plus R, Digital Watches. DW, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I just, I don't know, negotiated something useful to me, so I'm happy.
Love to see it. Can I call you DW? Is that a good abbreviation?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's one of the ones people do most commonly. Some people say watches. Some people try to keep up with whatever fucking anagram I'm using at the time.
So today we're going to talk about Axl, this character. Pretty sick, also a huge pain. You are like the Axl main, so really stoked to see how you approach this character, how you make him work at a high level, what you do to beat all these top tiers, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to picking your brain. You ready to get started?
Totally.
All right, let's do it.
Come at me.
All right, so let's kick this off with Axl's kind of his character design. Usually I'd ask here about a gimmick. He doesn't necessarily have a gimmick so much as a move set that's kind of wild. Do you just want to talk about like what makes Axl special in the cast real quick?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think of Axl as kind of a Swiss Army knife. He's got like 100 million different weird tools. He's got these sort of like dragon punches that aren't dragon punches, like 3 of them. He's got shit that moves him around. He's got all these big sort of angular covering buttons. I think a lot of people most associate Axl with these, the little anti-airs that sort of reach the entire screen, or most of it anyway. He's got a full screen command grab in this version. A really fast version of charge stun edge that also launches on hit and is, a million on block if you FRC it. So, it's a character that has just a lot of different tools, and they're all for different purposes. And oh my god, I'm terrible at recording things in training mode. People laugh at me. It's even got this little counter. You can combo off of it. Stuff to float around in the air. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a character that has an answer to any situation. But it's like you have to be a little more hard call-outy because they're usually tools that cover fewer situations than most characters have. And of course, Axl's really well known for being strong at anti-air. You don't want to jump against this character is the meme, but it's kind of true. So like, you can reach people like all the way up there. And as a general rule, teching and bursting is a lot more dangerous against Axl, as I was telling you, because you can just sort of like put them in all kinds of traps. Let's see. Because you have such good anti-airs, there's also sort of this thing where you can trap people if they tech out of combos. And so I do a lot of mix-up based around, am I going to try and throw something into their tech, or am I going to try and knock them down with my combo? You get a decent amount of like hard knockdown corner carry from Axl combos, and then you can do mix-up off of that. And so it's this really dangerous situation where when they're getting out of your combo, then they're kind of still at risk. People think of teching as like this way to get out of a combo. So that's a typical tech trap that I do. And you can just sort of like improvise a lot of things to either knock them down or carry them further, like that. As a typical extension you'll see. It's kind of hard to demonstrate tech traps because they're in the moment and kind of something you do in a match, more so than something that I practice a lot in training mode. But there's like a couple of things that I have, a couple of setups that I've learned to make so that you can't neutral tech them. Dear God. So like if I were to set this to neutral recovery, fun fact about Guilty Gear, you can't neutral recover on the first frame that you tech. So if I do this micro dash right, which is difficult, and sorry about that, then it should cover at least 2 of the tech directions, both neutral and back. And under certain circumstances, I can make it so you can't neutral tech it at all, although I'm not sure if that's true of Testament.
So it seems like his kit is built to like be a really interesting combination of like reactive zoning. Like it doesn't play out the way you'd see like a normal zoner who's like using a projectile for screen control and like kind of like preemptively shutting down options. It seems like he's more like catered to like stopping you from what you're doing after you've already committed to doing it. Is that like an accurate read?
Well, so I would say that that is definitely an approach you can take. I actually argue with people a lot that Axl is not a zoner because I feel that that's an extremely risky thing to do. If you are trying to call people's options out, obviously like you have some amazing tools for catching people if they're trying to jump or air dash at you. But if you're wrong, like for example, I will often throw out this button if I think they're about to jump, right? So if they're in pre-jump frames, then they'll get hit by that and I get a whole combo, you know, whatever. But like, it takes a long time to recover. A lot of characters, in fact, probably most characters have a way to like beat it out. So I think that as opposed to characters that have like projectiles or really disjointed tools, Axl takes a lot of risks by pushing buttons in neutral. And so trying to play your whole game plan around trying to keep the opponent out is taking on more risk than I think is like gonna win you games. Instead, I think of Axl as kind of a mid-range offensive character where you want to kind of stand where they don't have any buttons, but you do. So like around this range here, where it's like kind of hard for them to hit you fast, but you have disjointed BS that you can throw at them. You know. And so I'll keep people, I'll put this back in block. I'll keep people sort of under pressure, but try to sort of mix them up between either frame traps or range traps where, you know, they want to swing, but they don't have a button that'll reach me as fast as I can get a button to reach them. And also a lot of strike throw mix up. So like you can do tick throws that, since Axl has a throw that converts into a full combo, can end up doing a lot of damage. And you have like a million ways to tick throw. You can do like this kind of thing, or you can, I see Japanese Axl, Giorno Giovanna do, well, that's an FRC, but it's hard to do. That as a tick throw. And that's kind of your reversal as well. It's thrown vulnerable, it's 4 frames, and it's like super low profile, so it's kind of hard to contest, and it can make it scary for them to try and poke out that tick throw. A lot of people go wild when I do that kind of thing, get a throw off of that FRC, because, you know, you're like already putting them in a mix-up with the cross-up, and then more shit happens, and sometimes you get a throw. Oh yeah, and also if you're super cool, the FRC has a 1 frame window to actually hit and still get the cancel. It's hard because it's a 1 frame timing, but you can get a combo off of it that way. So like, I'll mix up between, you know, hitting with the cross up or putting momentum into it and being really far away so they can't punish it on block, or hitting them in the front so they go that way, and had to block it that way. And off of both of those options, whether you hit at the front or the back, you can get a pickup off of it with a jump install and an FRC, or an RC if you suck, like me. And also you can, you know, get your throw pickup from it.
Good lord.
So yeah, you know, people say this character doesn't have mix, but really he does. It's just strike throw mix. And you've got your sort of like plus on block tools that are the more traditional kind of tick throw. You've got this thing, ridiculous tool, Gatlings into everything. You know? But then also it's +2 on block. So often you can just sort of like keep going after it, and that's a frame trap. And if you are close enough, you can throw them off of it. So you see a lot of Axls just like exclusively rely on this move for their Oki. I would argue that that's something that people can work around pretty well if they have like a DP or something. So I tell people that they should mix it up a little more. And there's a lot that you can do, you know, you can go for air dash in like any Guilty Gear character basically. You can do sort of like baits into backdash, try to get them to whiff something. Sorry, I'm just rambling.
I'm intrigued, no worries. I'm taking notes in my head to like bring stuff up again later. You're doing
I often use this FRC as a frame trap. So like, you know, they expect to punish you after you land. And if you spend the meter, you get to have a sort of different situation. And then, of course, one of the mix-ups that's pretty unique to Axl is this command grab. Because A, it looks like this move, which you're doing all the time. It's how you continue your pressure. It's how you sort of like launch them after a ground hit. That's Sensengeki. And then the startup of it looks exactly like this command grab, basically until the middle part of it where you first see the blue thing. Mm-hmm. And so while it's a pretty slow and punishable command grab, it does reach full screen, it goes through projectiles, it ignores hitboxes, and it'll grab you. It's unblockable. And on top of that, you have the additional layer of the thing is feintable, so you can cancel the animation and go into stuff like, you know, either more buttons, or especially since they're trying to jump over it, you go for anti-airs. And it's a good way to sort of trap people into getting into that anti-air situation that's actually a lot more damaging for fewer meter than ground launches for Axl.
Gotcha. So
So you can
this guy sucks.
Yeah, you can keep people in block stun for a long time. Obviously, he doesn't have like unreactable high-low like Chip or Milia or whatever, which can make it a little like more feasible to block for a while. But you're getting your guard bar cranked. You know, sometimes I'll even just go for strings that are explicitly designed to crank guard bar. Like if I think that people won't sort of reversal out, then I'll go for sort of less frame tight strings that involve a bunch of hard slashes and stuff to just kind of bully their guard bar up. And yeah, I mean, like, it can be really dangerous to block if the Axl knows how to sort of force throws on you, force Roshosens on you, get you scared of, you know, the eventual payoff. So off a throw, like, ridiculous amount of damage. Obviously, throw combos in this game generally will prorate to 50%, or maybe not exactly 50% for the entire cast, but pretty close to there. And you can do, you know, because you have that really versatile FRC, you can do all these sort of like air dash based mix-ups that, and also these sort of like sway back mix-ups that involve kind of getting out of their range and then putting an attack in their face. So like I'll often go for that on their wake up, or I'll like run up just to sort of like put them on edge, get them antsy, make them try to swing, make them get counter hit.
Let's ease back a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you a low ball question.
Okay.
What's your favorite move of Axl's, and why is it your favorite move?
Oh my god. Okay, so like, I'm a huge fan of some of the more like esoteric tools that they've been giving Axl. So like, it's a tie between 3, I think.
Okay.
I think this one is an enduring classic, Kokugeki. This move is super weird. They give it to him in like slash, and it stops your air momentum completely. So like you can see I'm doing it off of an air dash, and it just stops me in place right there. The whole thing is a projectile. It hits behind you basically right away. So I use that often as like a cross up, like that kind of thing.
Right.
Or like air dash over them. It's also air unblockable, so you have to faultless that in the air, even though it's an air move.
I actually noticed when we were playing that I got hit by that, and I was like, wait a minute. I swear I was walking there. What's going on?
Yeah, I use that as a mix-up in the air, because people like will be trying to instant block to get out of stuff or try to air throw me or whatever, and I'll throw that at them, and if they weren't ready to faultless, then they get hit. And you know, it leads into whatever you want. It preserves your air options, so you can air dash off of it and stuff. It's just a really great move. I also really like this. People think that it's a bad move, and they're just wrong. It can be really tricky because you can steer this the whole time. You can direction install it. So like, I'm doing the same move, and I'm just pushing different directions. You can also put running momentum into it, so it can go even further. And you can make it drop either right away or up to almost 2 full seconds later. You know, it's a weird tool for sure. And it seems really slow, so people are like, oh, you can just call that out. But in practice, people often can't. And if I have the 50% meter to RC it, it can be totally safe. I can use it to enforce a mix-up. It's, I don't know, I think it's actually pretty good. Plus, it's really fun. You can just kind of fly off the screen. Plus, it's really got some like matchup-specific esoteric uses. So, like against Testament, here, let me see if I can. So, Axl gets to just kind of like cross that space for free. Not just with that version of the move, but also with the sort of more generally useful slash version of the move. Actually, the pattern that I just had Testament plant is one that people use to counter me doing that. But in general, that'll get you over them as sort of your like baseline option. And then if they really have a bunch of like control of the field, then you can use this to go further. And with Testament, if you cross the space, then the tree activates. Also, against Bridget, you use that to get high enough in the air to hit the motherfucker. Because that kid can just be flying up in the stratosphere, and you're like, how the fuck, what? I can't even wear it, but why doesn't this work? Anyway, so I think that's a pretty cool situational tool. And my third candidate for favorite move is actually the follow-up to this auto guard, Shiranami no Hamura. And that is, I like it because it's like the only move I know of that has built-in counterplay to the counterplay to it. So this move is a high auto guard, frame 1, will block any high or mid attack. So, you know, there are some obvious ways around it. You could throw a low at it, and because it takes a little while to activate, you can also throw a second hit at it that's a little staggered to sort of like tag it. So one thing that Testament does to me a lot is that. So like, if I'm eating that string and I'm like, I'm gonna disrespect out, I'm gonna auto guard that. Oh wow. Okay, wait. Oh really? Okay, I don't know the timing that Testaments are using for that, but basically, once you're actually there, we go. That's the trick. So So basically, you throw that second move in there because it'll hit when the thing's done auto-guarding, but before it'll actually connect with the attack. And then this force break follow-up is some bullshit because it's another invincible move that comes off of it. So in that case, I hadn't gotten the timing right, and that shit's probably pretty hard, and I really respect the Testaments who can do it to me. But there's a built-in counterplay if they try to cancel into a sweep or something, because you got another invincible move that you can throw out basically at any time during that. I don't even have to connect with the attack to start it up. It can actually start basically on frame 2, although it's kind of a hard motion to do that fast. And get this sort of extra invincible hit.
How do you feel about Axl's matchups? Are there certain ones that you feel at least for you, are particularly straightforward, you rarely have issues with certain characters, and then other ones where you get shut down?
Yeah, so I find that characters that are trying to sort of control-oriented characters like Testament or Kai are pretty easy for me. Maybe that's my playstyle and maybe it's the character, but I just find that I can sort of stymie what they're trying to do. Testament will do shit try to set up webs and trees places, and Axl just gets to whatever, they're gone, And then, you can go straight through Kai's stuff. I also find that Abba's pretty easy to control. I think that, in general, characters that I can lock down are a little bit easier. And actually, characters that are hard are characters that can put a lot of sort of weird-shaped threats on the screen that aren't much risk to them. So, while Justice can only sort of put things in straight lines that I can counter a little more easily, Venom can put balls basically going in any direction from any place on the screen, and that actually makes it really hard for me to ever safely throw out a move or do these big plays like jumping across the screen. It really shuts down what I'm trying to get done. Dizzy, in a similar way, is able to sort of force this tighter, more locked down game plan from me. And also Dizzy is really rough because her throw range is bigger than mine. And so because she can sort of cover the mix-ups she's doing with a fish, that forces me to if I try to reversal out, my reversal only has one hit, so it's going to hit the fish and not her. And if she goes for a throw, then I can't very easily contest it. I don't have a sub 5 frame jab, and her throw range is bigger than mine.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I would say probably the hardest matchups are Dizzy and Venom.
First off, let's talk about which probably is really great for this character. Let's talk about neutral. How do you approach neutral with Axl? What's your game plan for closing the gap if you want to do that, or just filling it with scythes, whatever your plan is?
So in almost every matchup, except basically Potemkin and sometimes Abba, I'm more trying to get in than out. And really, what Axl doesn't want to do is keep them in neutral forever, in my opinion. Because every time you throw out one of these buttons, you're committing to a lot of frames, you're committing to a lot of recovery. If I throw this out and they actually read me and they jump, then they have a mazillion frames to punish me. So on the one hand, if you can watch them and play reactively, then you can stop them for a long time, but you're not getting a lot of damage off of that, and you're not really gaining advantage. Because characters that are a little more able to play non-committally, throw out jabs, and still be able to blow you up in a second, like Jam or Milia, are going to be a lot, actually, even though this sounds counterintuitive, they're going to be a lot more comfortable in that neutral than I am. That being said, most of my approach to neutral is really movement focused, and you'll find that a lot of Guilty Gear works out like that in the high level. So I'll try to confuse people with where I'm going and where I'm going to put a button, and try to sort of delay trying to attack them as much as possible. So what I tell new Axl players most of the time is if you're in neutral and you don't have any kind of advantage, if you stick out a button, you should want it to hit. And that's kind of antithetical to the zoner mentality, because a lot of the time when you're playing a zoning character that actually zones, you're often sort of like throwing out moves as a threat, you know? You're throwing out like pretty much the only button I think is safe to do that as Axl is like this or this. Where you put the button on the screen and you like kind of dare them to contest it. And oftentimes, you know, obviously in this game there's a lot of crazy projectiles. So zoners, people who can actually operate on a neutral sustaining game plan will usually have some kind of projectile that they can, a persistent threat that they can put on the screen. Surprisingly underrated neutral tool is run forward Raisageki. Actually, like, this thing gets me out of so many neutral situations because it'll go over stuff, it'll cross a lot of space all at once, and like it puts a situation that they have to deal with on top of them.
Something I noticed about that move is it is fast, like so fast.
Yeah, so it's off the ground, like, you know, not throwable or whatever in 4 frames, about as fast as Axl's just jump. And it travels pretty far just by itself. It travels about half screen, but you can also install like running momentum into it so as to make it go even further, and also ambiguate where it goes. And for like an overhead cross-up, the thing's super fast. It's like 27 frames or something.
Yeah, when we played, you did that off rip, I think, one of the games. Like, that was your round start move, and it happened so fast. I just was on the ground. I wasn't sure what was going on.
Yeah, and like, it's a really funny round start mind game because, like, that's one of the threats that you have to deal with at round start against Axl, and some people I see just, like, anticipating it really hard. They're like, I'm gonna fucking air throw that thing, you know? And then it's like, oh, you jumped at round start. You can't even FD. Good luck.
Can you air throw that thing?
Yeah, you can air throw it. I mean, it's all throwable, but, you know, it moves pretty fast. So, like, the reason they think they can air throw it is they've labbed it out and they go to round start distance and they're like, oh, look, he's right above me. I can jump straight up and air throw. And it's like, yeah, you can just jump up and air throw it, right? And in fact, you can do that from a decent amount of, you know, it's not like super tight spacing. I'm sitting here trying to set up the whole situation, but, you know, you can like lab that out and have that be your sort of reliable round start punish for that. But again, round start is kind of an interesting situation for Axl because he's sitting there at a range where, you know, his far slash will reach you, but his far slash will reach you, but a lot of characters' buttons have a hard time reaching there. So there's sort of a baseline option where you're trying to, you know, maybe beat that or maybe block it or whatever. And then there's also that threat of suddenly crossing you up. But there's also the fact that, you know, this character is really known for having crazy anti-airs and crazy damage off of anti-airs. So you jump up in the air and like, here, let me actually record something that I would do. So, you know, I'll mix up between the round start cross up and that, because if I jump up and try to do my air throw, suddenly I'm in a combo, right? And you can't even like hedge against that because at round start you don't have any meter to faultless defense, and all of those moves are air unblockable.
Just something that just happened that we actually haven't touched on yet is that move vacuumed Jam in really, really hard.
Oh yeah, so every single one of these buttons will pull the opponent back on the second hit. So these 2 hit buttons, even this one, oh my god, right, soul combos. They all have this vacuum effect. And that sort of enables a lot of how Axl does combos and traps and like just putting weird situations on you. You know, there's an inherent advantage to having 2 hits on a move too. Like, for example, if you're playing against Potemkin or Abba, they both sort of have this, or Slayer? I was fighting against a really good Slayer the other day. Probably, people tell me he's the best player in Mexico, and I believe it. And he was using Undertow, which is Slayer's tool that apparently also has one hit of auto guard. Or not auto guard, super armor. Right, so like, you know, there's kind of an inherent nicety to having a 2-hit tool against this character because... See, so like, that thing will absorb 1 hit of a move, but since all these things have 2 hits, that's inherently powerful in and of itself. And then there's the fact that it pulls you back in, so you can do stuff like take them out of the corner to make that cross-up work, or you can like get them towards you to throw them. And then this weird esoteric thing that everyone asks about all the time that they added in +R and no one really understands is if you hold down the button, it makes the second hit not happen. And like, it's weird. I don't know if that's useful for anything. I feel like there are some very high-level mind games that it might be relevant in, like, you know, tech traps or slashbacks, or, you know, I'm fighting Potemkin and I don't want to actually pull him back towards me because what if I get pot bustered? But, you know, it's just kind of a weird extra thing.
Let's talk about Axl's pressure and his mix-ups. This is something you were showing off earlier in like really deep fashion. It seems like this character is really good at making his own plus frames, keeping people guessing and pressure, a lot of interesting FRC points to mix with, and a really good throw for this. So let's dive into it.
Oh, okay, so probably the cornerstone of Axl Mixup is the fact that he gets damage off his throw. So a lot of characters, you know, a throw is just kind of like a low damage threat that you're just going to have to take sometimes because it's 0 frames and it's unblockable. But Axl can get like, you know, especially in the corner, you get, wow, I'm a dumbass. You get some serious damage off of this. So it's like, you don't actually want to take a throw if you can avoid it, right? And Axl has a couple of ways to force a throw on you. He's got this, which is +1 on block, makes a good tick throw. He's got this, which is -1 on block, but very low profile, so kind of hard to contest. And you can tick throw with that too. This is probably the strongest because it's +2 on block, and also it goes into a lot of other things, and it's just a dangerous move in general, which you can also get a tick throw off of. And then, like, advancedly, you have a lot of other situations that put you at severe frame advantage, like a bunch of your FRCs and stuff. And like, you know, air dash tick throws, weird bullshit like that. This is +1 on block, and this is your overhead. So yeah, I think that sort of the hardest mix-up to actually read with Axl is your strike throw mix-up. But that's not to say that you're completely devoid of high-lows or anything like that, because, you know, this character, like I said, has a shit ton of tools. And so, like, if I've got a shit ton of meter to work with, then I'll do more sort of, like, difficult... How many overheads am I going to do? Am I going to do a low coming off of it? Am I going to throw you off coming off of it? Am I going to try and bait something off of it? And then, of course, you've got your, like, movement mix-ups. You can be like, oh, where's the hole, you know? I've had you in block stun for 20 years. Are you... God, that's not a great example, but, you know, you can make people sort of get antsy to get out, want a reversal out or something, and then suddenly back off. That's a silly one, because it puts so much pushback on you in the corner. Your backdash suddenly goes like 1,000 fucking feet. So there's like games that you can also play with spacing. So like, you know, you get pushed out a little bit, and are you going to try and run back in? Are you going to just kind of sit there? Are you going to move a little closer and sort of space them out? What's going to happen? And then on top of that, you have BS like this sort of like overhead versus cross up versus like throw type of mix-up that you can do, and you've got a couple of even more dirty cross-ups. Like I like to do this one. It's kind of a melty blood style mix-up where you cross them over twice to sort of get them on the front side, or alternatively you can hit them with that in order to cross them up sort of immediately. So yeah, like I would say that it more falls under what I like to call pressure than mix-up, because like you say, Axl has a lot of ways to sort of force you to be at frame disadvantage, force you to block for a while, and sort of a lot of ways to cancel into, you know, dragon punches, counters, weird tools that you shouldn't try to fight out of. So like, for example, one of the things I like to do, one of the things that I wish I did more often, but often fail to do in situ, is if you see an ABBA, let's actually just put her in Maroha mode. Oh, cool, yeah, but you have to actually blood pack in training mode to get there. So, you know, ABBA has like this reversal, right? Everyone knows about it, the Donzai, right? And so if you're in the middle of the string and you find yourself putting a button into Donzai, then Axl has a pretty reasonably easy solution to that situation, which is just freaking counter it. It's a special cancel, you can go straight into it. And it can come off of really any button that you put into that. So yeah, like the mix-ups I do are not always your traditional highs and lows, or even strikes and throws, or even cross-ups. Sometimes it's stuff like, well, I could stop attacking right now, what are you going to do then? Or, I'm just going to jump over you, deal with it, you know? Like, because it's a character that can, if he wants, do sort of, but you can do like, just this really far, you know, continuation of your pressure from jumping over them. So like, if you play with spacing and timing in a way that makes them want to jump out maybe, or want to swing out, or try to throw their reversal at you, then you've got a lot of like mid-pressure answers and weirdness that you can throw at them. So it's like, yeah, you're not gonna like completely unreactable shmix them with like a high-low mix-up that they couldn't possibly see. You're not gonna maybe you can't force stuff like Potemkin's Oki mix-ups where you have, you know, the overhead that looks like side head and is throw invincible, and the low that's super fast. But you've got a lot of weird situations you can throw at them that they probably can't keep in their head all at once, and a lot of solutions to things that they might do to swing out.
So here, normally I would say let's talk about Oki, and I do want to talk about Oki, but I also want to dive back into the tech resets you were starting to show off earlier a little bit, because that seems like a great approach. I like that a lot.
Well, that's kind of like a fundamental, it's weird to call it a mix-up, but like sort of a mental stack overload that Axl has access to a greater degree than most characters. Because when you, as I was saying earlier, when you have someone in a combo, oh, I had them guard, so they're gonna FD that. But actually, that's a good illustration. Even if you get out of the tech trap by FDing, oftentimes, like, I don't care, you're in a disadvantageous situation blocking that. Like, okay, you FD'd something that has a lot of block stun, go straight to the ground, it's jump cancelable, it's special cancelable, and you're blowing meter to do that. So sort of air teching or even bursting against Axl is a really bad situation to be in. I even say that it's kind of like Oki, because I'm mixing up my positioning and what button I'm going to throw at you, and you're mixing, and like all you can really do to mix me up is try to be in a different space, or maybe if you have a lot of extra time, which I'm specifically setting up these things to not really give you, you might be able to get a button out, and if you're Soul, you might be able to like DP out. But, you know, that shit's scary. And also, to add to that, Axl often gets, a lot of extra damage for you being in the air when the combo starts. So like that throw combo, as I was saying, is going to prorate a lot, but that reset right here, you know, does damage like this. And like that could be a corner knockdown. I fucked it up there, but that could be another reset. And so off of both this counter and my throw, oftentimes I'll try to like get a short combo or, you know, start a combo and then go for my reset, because that'll actually get me more damage. The anti-air combo does more damage than the prorated combo that came off the throw.
What about when he does get like an actual hard knockdown? How are his Oki options in that situation?
So in that situation is where you start to have all these like... So Axl has some pretty unique Oki options as well. You knock someone down, often with Axl, with this follow-up to Rensengeki, which will pull them out of a corner. So that gives you the option to go for cross-ups. You can do, like, okay, this. So, you know, you get your knockdown, you do your loop or whatever. And then they're knocked down like that. So you can have your cross-up, you can have a not cross-up. A lot of people like to use this button basically exclusively as their Oki, because it's very disjointed. It can bait DPs and stuff. And it has a lot of potential. You can go into whatever you want. You can tick throw off of it, as I was showing you earlier. You can sort of like link it to make it difficult. You can go for your high-lows off of it. This is a low, whereas this is a high, and it also goes into your dust. You can go for your cross-up off of it, which is more effective if you actually get the second hit and pull them. Doesn't really work outside of the corner, but it does pull them out of the corner so that the cross-up works. So, you know, I see why a lot of people do it. It's a really good tool. You also have sort of the option of trying to space them out. So if I will throw things like this, or then if, you know, I were playing against a soul, then that's going to bait his DP because it won't hit me. The move is disjointed enough that he'll either whiff over it or clash with it. So like from approximately this distance, this will bait a lot of DPs, and from approximately like this distance, that'll bait a lot of DPs. So yeah, you have also obviously some of your like more typical general Guilty Gear jump into an overhead, or do a safe jump, or like do a low air dash to force sort of like this kind of high-low on them. I do a lot of like going for whiffed overhead and land and cancel and do a low, which is, you know, just normal Guilty Gear shit.
Right.
Axl does kind of have the option off of really far knockdowns to safe jump where a lot of characters can't. If you're really savvy about the timing, you can get that to hit overhead. But also safe jump against DPs and supers. I'm doing it way too early here, but you know, it's a overhead that'll travel a lot farther than most overheads in the game. And then, you know, you've got a bunch of really good meaty options. But yeah, so like you have a lot of good meaty options. I will often do something like throw this out so that it's ambiguous whether I'm hitting with the first hit or just the back hit. I will throw this out in a way that is specifically designed to make it hit really meaty so I can combo off of it. Oh my god, that pushes me out? Wild. Okay, Unji's weird. But, you know, in general, you have sort of like the normal set of Guilty Gear things, like meaty attacks that are throw invincible. This is an example because it's off the ground. And low air dashes, and just sort of like trying to put attacks on their face. But then you also have this weird kit of Axl buttons. Like, for example, I'll use this a lot to beta DP. I'll jump over people's supers with that, or cross them up with it, or give them the throw mix-up on Oki. Just like, there's a lot of weird options that I can throw at people that I think make Axl pretty unique. And then, of course, there's the option of just being like totally, utterly safe, but still having an attack on them. But so, for example, I'll often, from a further knockdown, actually, I guess a better example is, you know, I've decided to blow some meter and get this really close, get this really close kind of Axl Bomber knockdown, if I can even do it on Unji. I guess that he's not one of the characters that works on. Okay, so a character that it definitely works on is Slayer. So a knockdown that I sometimes get against Slayer is like this kind of bullshit, right? And so from there, I can throw a Rensengeki on top of him, and there's not a lot that he could really throw out to hit me. I could hit it from even about this far away, and still have the opportunity to, if he backdash cancel jumped, go for that anti-air follow-up. So like, this is the option to just sort of back off, force them to take this attack that could knock them down again, but not really give them much to work with as far as trying to reversal out. I often don't take that option because I'm more interested in dealing more damage and mixing them up. And as I said, you know, you can just get a lot out of any mix-up that you get with Axl. Can take them to the other corner, you know? So it's like, I'll often be going for sort of the start to my pressure, the start to a sequence of mix-ups. But you know, you just have a lot of versatility to work with. You can get across the screen and force a safe jump on them. You can cross them up in the corner. Another reset that I will typically do is I sent him into neutral tech, so I need a little higher. Is I'll go for an air throw. Actually, it's so much easier to air throw back techs, and forward techs for that matter. So I'm just going to do that for my own convenience here. So you get an air throw, and then they wake up backwards, so you can cross them up in the corner. And that gives Axl this weird little, almost chip-like mix-up. Wow. I'm bad at air throws today. So you get this almost chip-like mix-up where if you fall down and hit a normal, then it'll land on the front of them. But if you do Axl Bomber or Kokugeki, then you'll land behind them and cross them up.
You know, we've talked a lot about Axl's offense, but that's not all this game is. You do have to play defense sometimes. And normally here I would ask, you know, does Axl have any really good defensive options that he can bust out when he's stuck in block or dealing with some pressure?
Okay, so the answer is yes, but.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, so, you know, we've talked about already that Axl's throw is really good. You know? Mm-hmm. So you get a lot of damage off of that, and it's Guilty Gear, you have 0 frame reversal throws. So if I can pull off, you know, IB someone and throw them, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Obviously, a lot of people work really hard in this game to make their pressure throw safe. So, you know, it's not always an option, but that's something that they kind of always have to think about, because even though that sucks no matter who does it to you, when it's Axl, it's going to do a bunch of damage, and it might be a bad situation. It might be like damage into corner knockdown into you're in my blender now. Good luck. Right? So I think I would call that the baseline option. And what Axl really lacks, defensively speaking, is a jab. So there are characters in this game whose jab isn't 5 frames. I found out. So he's not in exactly the worst position out of anyone, but even those characters that have like a 6 frame jab, usually it's whiff cancelable, and Axl doesn't have anything like that. So his lowest risk button is like this or this. And they're pretty fast, but they're not exactly jab speed, and they're not whiff cancelable. So when someone is running really tight tick throw pressure on you, you sort of have to guess really hard to get out. Axl has a longer jump than most characters by a single frame, so it's not that bad. But it just in aggregate, all this makes it harder for him to get out of tick throw mix-ups. But what he does have is this dumb tool, Benton. And what that does is it's throw invulnerable, it's 4 frames, and it's low profile. It's not actually invincible. You can hit it at the bottom of it from frame 1. But it'll go under a lot of things. It's about invincible from his feet up, from his feet up. And it's a 4-frame button, so it'll just like smack people. So Axl doesn't have a full DP. His only true invincible option is this super, which is actually really slow for a reversal super and really easy to punish. If you watch this video and you block this super, you should know that no matter what character you are, you have something that you block the first part and then you like instant air dash over the second part. So like this super has 2 parts, and all you have to do is block the first part and then either swing something if you have something that's fast and disjointed, or air dash over it and hit Axl. You can also throw it after that point. You can be invincible through it after that point. You should never block that whole super, especially since it does extra chip damage. But you know, that's your only real invincible option. But what you do have is you have a 4-frame button that often trades really well. So a thing that I get against a lot of people when they're trying to Oki me is they'll have some overhead button or like even a fast button that they're just gonna throw out. And if they do that, I can often force it to trade. Actually, let me see. I'm gonna record this whole Oki scenario that I run into a lot against Slayer, which is that, right? That overhead. So you get that overhead, and you can actually, oh my god, you can force it to trade with that move, which in many circumstances is actually better than beating it clean, because although Axl can always combo off of it with meter, it has an FRC, you can get a combo. That's 25% meter minimum, and that's if you're good at the FRC. And actually, that's another way that you can kind of be safe. If you whiff the DP, you can also FRC it. I call it a DP because it's so invincible and it's a DP motion, but actually not fully invincible. You can hit it with a low. But in the circumstance where you're like able to force a trade like that, you get a combo for no meter. So it's actually a really good kind of disrespect option to throw in a lot of situations because it's fast, it trades, and I get damage off of it. And so this is kind of where that, like, you have all the tools you need, you have tools for every situation, but you have to kind of know where to use them comes in. Because this will beat most things that aren't low, and it's fast, and it's invincible, but if they just throw, like, a really baseline low button at you, here, let me do a similar situation that will beat that. So I'm just going to assume that's meaty. So you get a situation like that, and I try to throw that out, and I'm like, oh, it's a counter hit. I just got hit out of it. You know?
Right.
But since I'm not actually timing the meaty right, I can hit him. But that shouldn't be able to happen. If he does a meaty low on me, it'll beat it clean every time. And so that's where stuff like this comes in. So if I'm going against Potemkin, I'll often use the other DP, which is just the same thing with a different button, because that has low invincibility. And so that'll lose to that first setup. It's slower and it doesn't cover his upper body at all, but his feet are invincible on that one. So it'll go over stuff like slide head, it'll go over your typical low. So like, just goes right through it, right? And then Probably the most busted defensive tool that Axl has is this guy right here. This is an auto guard that hits in 20 frames, but also, like Anji's auto guards, ignores hit pause. So if someone strikes you with an attack when you do it, and it's frame 1, it's a really early auto guard window that lasts for 13 frames. So if you do it and it absorbs an attack, usually they don't have a lot of time to throw out something else. And I showed you some counter tech that I've seen Testament use against me earlier. You can beat it, but it's just kind of an awkward tool to work around, because at any time in the middle of your string or on my wake up even, some button, any button, not a low, right? And like the fast Benton, this will lose to lows because it doesn't guard lows at all. But if they just throw a button and I could do anything, if I have one frame, then I have this really long range thing that'll hit them because it blocked their attack. So Axl just kind of gets to bully certain matchups with that. Like against Abba, I'll just wait until she runs out of life and wait until I have a one frame gap in her block string and try to disrespect out with that.
Yeah, I can definitely see.
But again, you can beat it with a low, you can beat it with staggered normals. You just have to kind of be aware of it. And what that means is that Axl kind of has to know what you're gonna do to get out. And you've also got even more esoterically, you have the ability to counter. That takes about 4 frames, and you have to call out whether it's high or low. But it works. If you can find a 4-frame gap, then you can get out even if they're invincible or something, and that gets you damage and knockdown and whatever you want. And also this again gets off the ground, gets out of there. Sometimes I just want to get out, so I'll reversal that to like crush a low or something. But it's all very situational. You kind of have to think about what defensive option you want to use, as opposed to something like a DP where you're just trying to swing at anything with it.
Something that I asked about while we were playing from the other side, but you brought this up. He can use FD to push people out and get a lot of
Yeah, so a typical way that people use FD is they try to make people whiff things. Right? Let's say I'm doing that. And oh wait, I did this backwards. But so as I was telling you before, some of Axl's sort of offense and pressure can come from the fact that, Soul has a 4-frame button here, or a 3-frame button here actually, but it only goes about this far. Whereas Axl has this 9-frame monstrosity that reaches pretty much half screen. Okay, maybe not half, but a quarter screen, 3 or 4 character widths. And so oftentimes I'll be going for FD you out until you're at a bad range to contest me. So it forces characters to kind of think about what spacing they're in kind of a similar way to how a lot of characters will try to use IB. They'll throw out IB in order to make it a frame advantageous situation for them, and that can kind of be effectively true for Axl just by making you a little further away. This is Soul's 5k, whereas Axl's 5k reaches sideways, goes all the way over to here. And so while, you put those against each other, so from right here, that just wins, right? But from right here, that still wins. But from right here, it's a trade. And then, the further out you are, the more of Axl's normals just start to win, right? About to the max range of this thing. And so I'll use FD to sort of force people into a situation where they have to decide to either stop and run back in or instant air dash or something in order to not be whiffing normals in front of me, not be trying to contest me at a range where they really can't. Because, you know, a lot of characters will have a long button, like maybe this, but that's a lot slower than my long button here. So, like, at this same range... Oh, actually, that did win. But I'm not hitting it very fast. Often that'll beat stuff. And, like, what that means is I can use FD to sort of force that range on you. Or force, as many characters will, try to, like, jump cancel something and IAD back in. And Axl, of course, has some really nice, good options against instant air dashes. You can do, like, this, or you could do, like, this guy, or you could do, like, a 6P. A lot of characters can do that, but... Or, you know, if you're really not feeling confident in your in how many frames you have to do it, you can actually just auto guard. Because, you know, if you're instant air dashing in on me, I am guaranteed that you're not throwing a low. Right?
Right.
So yeah, like, the way that Axl can kind of, not uniquely, other characters can sort of do this too, but not all of them. But a really strong way to use Faultless Defense as Axl is to just push them into a space where their decisions are a lot harder than yours. Axl does have a pretty busted button that low profiles. So I was telling you earlier, this is kind of Axl's jab speed option. And it's slower than a jab, but this thing hits low. It low profiles like a crazy amount of things, and it'll like recover and block. So, you know, Kai can throw out like frickin' far slash, or I hit the wrong button. Go straight under it. You can do like, if he throws a jumping slash, go straight under it. Here, let me show you that that wasn't just that he jumped over me. It goes under... It goes under fireballs, it goes under jump-ins, it goes under frickin' Kai's DP and Jam's DP, and like, you straight up can dodge half the moves in the game with just this button that recovers in like 11 frames.
Digital watches. If someone came to you tomorrow and said, I'm on the fence about playing Axl Low, I'm thinking about it, but I'm not quite sure yet, what would you say to them to push them over the fence? Why should someone play Axl in Guilty Gear XX Accent Core plus R?
Because he's the best character in the game. He can do something in any situation, and I think that's pretty powerful in a game that can force so many situations on you.
Yeah, fair enough.
It might be hard to find what that answer is, but I am confident that it exists.
All right, that is all that I've got for you today. So, this is the part where you plug your stuff. I know you've got Twitter. Do you have a YouTube or a Twitch, anywhere people can find you to check out this sweet, sweet Axl play?
I don't really stream Guilty Gear that often. I have a stream. It's Twitch TV /Timepiece Games, and that's the sort of fake quasi-company we use to make Box Fighter, which is the fighting game that I've been making as a side project for years and years and years. It has rollback netcode, but the lobbies are in a pretty janky state right now. But it's a cool fighting game. You should check it out. It's free. You can get it for Windows or Linux. I don't know. I'm not really that... I guess I'm more of a public persona now that this game has had a revival and I'm a strong player. But, like, I don't really have that much stuff to shill. Play Box Fighter. I guess also we have been running a nocturnal players tournament. So, you know, I'm kind of a night owl, and me and my roommate decided we wanted to run a tournament at midnight, and we ended up making it midnight CST, so we weren't making East Coasters stay up forever and ever and ever. But it's called Kagematsuri, and Kagematsuri is still in the dark, and we're thinking of running another one in May, so enter that if you are up that late.